I can see that there were tests done for mercury and lead, two of the trace metals most commonly associated with poison. It makes me wonder if Bruce Lee's death was somehow associated with foul play.
Imagine this: 52 wooden crates, sealed for half a century, sitting in a cold Seattle warehouse. Each one stamped property of the Bruce Lee Family Trust. For decades, nobody was allowed to touch them. Legal battles, grief, fear of what might be inside. Everything kept those lids nailed shut. Then, one morning in 2024, the locks finally came off. What spilled out wasn't just memorabilia. It was evidence. Evidence of pain. Evidence of obsession. Evidence that the greatest martial artist who ever lived was secretly fighting a war against his own body and losing. We're about to open the vault on Bruce Lee's private estate, piece by piece. You've seen the movies. You've copied the kicks. You've quoted, "Be water, my friend." But you've never seen the real cost of becoming the dragon. Over the next hour, we're going deep. Shattered training equipment soaked in blood-secret medical x-rays he hid from the World A pocket diary that reads like a suicide note written in slow motion, the heartbreaking fate of his Hong Kong dream home, turned into something no fan can even say out loud, and letters to his children that will leave you in tears. This is not a feel-good tribute. This is the uncensored truth they never put on the posters. By the end, you'll never look at Bruce Lee the same way again. And honestly, that's exactly what he would have wanted. So hit that like button right now if you're ready to see behind the legend. Subscribe with notifications on, because this one is heavy. And let's begin. The warehouse doors roll up. Morning light slices through the dust. 3 archivists, 2 lawyers, and Linda Lee Cadwell herself stand in silence. Crate number 1 is pried open. Inside, 2 completely destroyed speedballs. Leather torn to ribbons. Stuffing exploding out like guts. These weren't just used. They were punished. Bruce bought them right after the big boss made him a millionaire overnight. His first big gift to himself. Now they look like they survived a war. Underneath, hand-woven wrist wraps, stiff with old blood. Tiny pieces of athletic tape stuck to them with handwritten dates and heart rate numbers. 198 BPM. 204 BPM. 189 BPM. This wasn't training. This was self-torture with a stopwatch. Then the Eskrima sticks come out, splintered, labeled 3 a.m. practice. Sweat-stained tank tops dated and signed like lab samples. Hand-drawn charts tracking body fat percentage to the decimal, because 7.2% apparently wasn't low enough. Linda picks up a single page, April 1973. Bruce's handwriting. If the body breaks, the spirit must still perform. The room goes dead quiet, because right then, everyone realizes the myth of effortless mastery we all grew up on was a lie. Bruce Lee wasn't superhuman. He was a man who refused to lose to biology. So he beat his body into submission until it finally fought back. Next layer, x-rays. Lower spine looks like cracked porcelain. Microfractures everywhere from the 1970 back injury that almost paralyzed him. Doctors begged him to rest for a year. His handwritten note on the envelope, "Pain is a question. My answer is motion." That line sounds cool on a t-shirt. On an x-ray of a shattered spine, it sounds insane. Half-empty bottles of experimental steroids. Needles. A jump rope, so frayed it's basically wire. Blank VHS tapes labeled Form Study. Watch 1000X. And then, the pocket diary Linda quietly slips into her jacket without saying a word. By the end of day 1, the archivists aren't cataloging a legend anymore. They're performing an autopsy on a god. Hong Kong is exploding. Bruce finally has money. He buys a modest 2-story villa at 41 Cumberland Road, Kowloon Tong. Calls it Crane's Nest, after the bird carved above the gate, his favorite Wing Chun stance. To the outside world, it's just a nice house. Inside, it's a laboratory of obsession. He rips out the living room floor and installs sprung maple, so every kick echoes like a gunshot. Builds a wooden dummy in the corner. turned the garage into a private cinema with a 16mm projector to study fight footage frame by frame, all night, every night. Neighbors wake up to rhythmic thuds at 5 a.m. That's Bruce hitting the heavy bag. He hung from a ceiling beam. He reinforced himself. Money looks big on paper, but ledgers found in the crates tell the real story. Some months the family bank account dropped below $2,000. He pawned tournament watches to keep the schools open. No bodyguard. No Ferrari. Just a 1969 Chevy station wagon and a dream he refused to let die. Up in the attic, stacks of philosophy books, Krishnamurti, Lao Tzu, Jiddu. Down in the soundproof back room, reel-to-reel tapes of him practicing diaphragmatic breathing years before the fitness world discovered it. Chuck Norris sparred on the patio. Stuntmen slept on tatami mats between takes. On stormy nights, Bruce wrote letters to Brandon and Shannon about building a worldwide brotherhood of martial artists with no prejudice. 16 months. That's all the time he got to live there. Then July 20th, 1973. He collapses at Golden Harvest Studios. Cerebral edema. Dead at 32. Crane's Nest locks its gates forever. The koi pond goes still. The heavy bag stops swinging. 50 years later, archivists realize they're not just opening crates. They're opening a time capsule of a life cut short. And the darkest twist is still coming. 10 centimeters. That's how small the diary is. Rice paper pages, front and back, filled with Bruce's handwriting. Sometimes beautiful calligraphy, sometimes frantic scrawl like he couldn't write fast enough before the pain hit again. They expected Zen wisdom. They got a horror story. Page after page of migraines that felt like ice picks behind the eyes. Electric jolts shooting down his spine. Nights where his resting heart rate hit 140 BPM while lying completely still. He rated his back pain 1 to 10 every single day, then prescribed himself workouts that would hospitalize normal people. One margin has a tiny drawing, his own gravestone cracked open by a fist. Caption, victory over self. For months before he died, an MRI shows a slipped disc, so bad the doctors begged him to stop filming. His response in the diary, I will not be slowed by caution. I drive my body like a young general sending soldiers before dawn. He lists every drug he's taking. Corticosteroids, muscle relaxants, experimental nerve blockers from a shady LA doctor. Side effects, blurred vision, tinnitus, throat closing up. Doses keep climbing anyway. May 10th, 1973. If I die, forgive me for choosing speed over duration. Addressed to Linda. The autopsy found meprobamate levels that matched his private inventory gram for gram. This was an allergic reaction to one pill. This was a slow-motion overdose. He documented himself. The archivists closed the diary and just sat there because now they knew Bruce Lee didn't die because of bad luck. He died because he refused to lose a race against time, even when his body was screaming surrender. Picture this. The exact floorboards where Bruce Lee invented Jeet Kune Do, covered in heart-shaped jacuzzis. The walls that once shook from 1-inch punches, now covered in ceiling mirrors and neon silhouettes of naked couples. The sacred home he called Crane's Nest, 41 Cumberland Road, turned into Hong Kong's most infamous hourly rate love hotel. Yeah, you heard that right. After Bruce died, Raymond Chow bought the house from Linda for about 1 million Hong Kong dollars, then immediately flipped it to a businessman named Yu Pang Lin, who swore he'd make a museum. That promise lasted about 5 minutes. By the early 1980s, massive pink neon signs were flashing outside the gate. The marble foyer where Chuck Norris once waited for sparring sessions? Now a reception desk with a rate card, 3-hour blocks, condoms included. Shannon's pastel blue childhood bedroom, chopped into karaoke booths with sticky couches. The sprung maple floor he installed so kicks would echo like gunshots, hidden under red shag carpet and circular beds that vibrated for coins. Local tabloids ran the most brutal headline in martial arts history. Enter the Dragon. Exit with a hooker. Welcome to the Love Hotel of the Dragon. Fans lost their minds. Petitions with hundreds of thousands of signatures begged the government to save it. Nothing. Private property laws protected the owner. For almost 30 years, strangers had sex where Bruce taught his kids how to throw their first punch. In 2008, Yu Panglin finally announced the motel would close and become a heritage center. Everyone celebrated. Then he died in 2015. Plans frozen. 2019. The bulldozers rolled in at dawn while protesters waved dragon flags and screamed. By sunset, Crane's nest was a pile of rubble. All that survived: one circular window for teak frames and a single cracked turquoise tile with half a crane wing on it. Linda held that tile in the museum light and whispered he wanted flight, not be remembered like this. Deep inside a lacquered box sealed with red wax and Bruce's own fingerprint, 23 letters. Not to Linda, not to the world, to Brandon and Shannon, written between November 1972 and July 1973. The ink is faded to rust brown, but the words hit like a sidekick to the soul. To 9-year-old Brandon, detailed training programs, blindfold drills, footwork charts, but then suddenly, I'm afraid the cameras will steal our backyard time forever. Train to beat yourself, son, not opponents. Because one day the world will want the dragon, not your dad. To 4-year-old Shannon, press frangie panty flowers from the garden, little drawings of spinning kicks compared to ballet pirouettes. I save these petals for when you're big enough to dodge raindrops. After May 1973, the handwriting starts shaking. The same month the diary entries turned suicidal. Last letter, July 1973. Dear Brandon, remember that strength is... And then nothing. Blank page. Mid-sentence. Forever. 8 Polaroids nobody has ever seen. Bruce kneeling next to Brandon's first tiny heavy bag Shannon, riding on his shoulders, laughing on a film set, Linda cracking up as Bruce fails to juggle 3 oranges. Linda ordered the originals locked in a password-protected vault. She added one new envelope addressed to Shannon's children. Open only when I'm gone. Nobody knows what's inside. Bruce Lee died owning almost nothing. Ledgers from the crates. 80% of his film's salary disappeared into medical bills, student tuition, and experimental treatments. Assets at death: 1 beat-up 1969 Chevy wagon, 2 second-hand projectors, and a mortgage still hanging over Crane's nest. Within weeks of the funeral, bootleg T-shirts were everywhere. Decades later, fake Be Water energy drinks, dragon cologne that smells like cheap Axe body spray, NFTs of his nunchucks. An unsigned 1973 contract found in the crates shows Bruce trying to keep control of his own likeness, something almost impossible back then. Because he never signed it, the vultures won. Linda and Shannon have spent 50 years in court suing counterfeiters on 5 continents. Close your eyes for a second and imagine stepping back into Crane's nest, exactly as it was in 1973. The sprung maple floor creaks under your feet. The heavy bag still swings. You can smell the jasmine from the garden and the faint metallic tang of blood from the wrist wraps. That place no longer exists in real life. But in 2025, it exists again. A secret team of engineers took every surviving 8mm home movie, every photograph, every architectural blueprint, and the final laser scans of the rubble, and rebuilt Crane's nest in perfect virtual reality. When Shannon Lee put on the headset for the first time, she dropped to her knees in the digital living room and sobbed for 20 straight minutes. A Paralympian in a wheelchair threw a perfect 1-inch punch next to Bruce's avatar and said through tears, "This is the first time I've ever felt tall." But the VR is just the beginning of what they found in the last crates. Crate 51. One single 35mm reel, hand-labeled in Bruce's red marker. GOD, final cut, do not scream without me. Game of Death, the Holy Grail, the movie he never finished, except the reel is fused. The emulsion has melted into a solid block from 50 years of Hong Kong humidity. Right now, as you're watching this, that reel is sitting in a cryogenic lab in Tokyo being cooled to minus 196 degrees Celsius, so they can try to peel the frames apart one by one with microscopic lasers. If they succeed, we might finally see the original Pagoda fight with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in full 35mm glory. Or we might see something nobody is ready for. Because here's what the archivists noticed when they x-rayed the sealed can. There are strange white streaks inside the emulsion that don't match normal film damage. Preliminary spectroscopy came back with traces of mercury compounds baked into the celluloid itself. Yes, the same mercury that showed up in Bruce's autopsy. And that's when the poison theory stopped being a conspiracy and started being disturbing. Bruce's private medical log, the one sealed until 2075, apparently lists a series of vitamin injections given by a Los Angeles doctor who literally vanished off the face of the earth 2 weeks after Bruce died. That doctor's office was cleaned out overnight. Patient files gone. No forwarding address. The only thing left behind, a business card with a dragon logo that matches the one on the poison reel can. Coincidence? The family says yes. But the lab in Tokyo just requested permission to test the reel for heavy metal fingerprints. Permission has not been granted yet, and until it is, that reel stays frozen literally. March 17th, 2025, 8 p.m. Hong Kong time. 8-language simultaneous translation. For 0.2 million concurrent viewers on YouTube alone. Linda Lee Cadwell, now 80 years old, and Shannon Lee walk onto a black stage lit only by a single spotlight. Behind them, a bulletproof glass case containing 3 objects. The cracked speedball dripping ancient blood, the lone turquoise crane wing tile salvaged from the demolition of the pocket diary, closed with new wax seal that will not be broken until 2075. A journalist from Hong Kong asked the question everyone is thinking. Mrs. Lee, will the world ever read the complete diary, the drug lists, the final letters? Linda looked straight into the camera for 10 full seconds of silence that felt like an hour. Then she says the sentence that instantly became the most clipped moment of 2025. Some truths are too sharp for the world right now. My husband wrote, "If I die, forgive me for choosing speed over duration." We are choosing duration for his pain. The medical file stays sealed another 50 years. Not to hide, to protect. Chat exploded. Hashtag Bruce Lee poison trended worldwide within 6 minutes. Shannon stepped forward holding the salvaged crane tile and added something even heavier. My father used to say, "The medicine for my suffering I had within me." We discovered he was taking medicine from outside sources we still don't fully understand. When we do understand, you will know. Until then, let him be human, not evidence. Then she placed the tile on the table and walked off stage without another word. The stream ended abruptly. No Q&A, no merch drop, nothing. Within 24 hours, the clip of Linda's 50 years line had 187 million views. Reddit sleuths slowed down the footage and swear you can see tears in her eyes when she says protect. Let's lay out every piece they've let us see so far. Autopsy, published since 1973. Elevated mercury and lead levels in hair, blood, and brain tissue, meprobamate equinol, at near-lethal dose. Cerebral edema consistent with chronic heavy metal exposure, not just one allergic reaction diary entries. Redacted excerpts released by the family. May 3rd, 1973. New injections make me feel electric, but tongue is metallic for hours. June 18th, 1973. Headaches now come with silver taste. Doctor says it's normal. July 10th, 1973. If this is the price of another 5 years at the top, I pay it. The disappeared doctor. Name redacted in all public documents. Flew to Hong Kong July 18th, 1973. 2 days before Bruce's death. Checked out a Hyatt the next morning. Never seen again the reel. Mercury compounds detected on the film itself. Someone would have had to deliberately contaminate the can after Bruce's death or before enemies. TriadLink producers who lost millions when Bruce refused to sign exclusive contracts. A certain Hong Kong studio head who allegedly said, "If Bruce goes to Hollywood, we all starve." Put all together and you get the darkest timeline. Someone slowly poisoned Bruce Lee over months to make it look like his own overtraining killed him. The final dose was delivered in Betty Ting Pei's apartment to finish the job. The family refuses to confirm this theory, but they also refuse to debunk it, and that silence is louder than any confession. Bruce Lee had a choice in 1970 when his spine shattered. Option A, rest 1 year, maybe come back at 80% and live to 80 years old. Option B, experimental drugs, illegal injections, trained to the pain, burn for 3 more years at 200% and die at 32. He chose option B. And the world got Enter the Dragon. We got Jeet Kune Do. We got the greatest action star who ever lived. He paid with every cell in his body. Now the question falls on you. If someone walked up to you tomorrow and said, I can give you 10 years of being the absolute best in the world at what you do, top 0.0001%, untouchable, legendary, but you will die the day you turn 33. No negotiation. Would you take the deal? Be honest in the comments. Because Bruce did. And 50 years later, we're still watching his films, wearing his shirts, quoting his words, while he's been ashes since 1973. He won. He lost. He became water and fire and smoke. The crates are closed again. The diary is sealed. The reel is frozen. The house is gone. But the echo of that final choice still bounces around the world every time someone hits a heavy bag at 3 a.m. and wonders how far they're willing to go. Bruce Lee didn't die from a headache. He died from refusing to be forgettable. So I'll leave you with his own words, written 3 weeks before the end. Speed costs. How fast do you want to go? Comment below. How fast are you willing to go? If this video destroyed something inside you, smash that like button until it breaks. Share it with one person who needs to feel this. And subscribe, because next week we open the sealed files of another legend who never saw 34. Until then, train hard, love soft, crate 49, bottom layer. A steel box welded shut in 1974. When they finally cut it open in 2025, they found something the family never expected. 27 handwritten letters in Cantonese, all addressed to Bruce, all from the same man. A 14K tried red pole enforcer known only as Brother 9. The letters start polite. 1971. Congratulations on the big boss. Offers a protection for the new Kowloon Tong house. They get darker fast. March 1972. Some of your stuntmen owe gambling debts at my Macau casino. It would be tragic if their knees broke before the next shoot. June 1972. A photograph enclosed. Bruce's children playing in the Crane's Nest Garden, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. Then the money demands. Bruce had co-signed a private loan for a stuntman who vanished with triad money. Amount: 2.8 million Hong Kong dollars, about $2 million US in 2025 money. Interest compounded weekly. One letter, dated exactly 30 days before Bruce died. We have been patient, little dragon. Even dragons burn. Return what is owed, or we collect from your family after you are gone. On the back of that letter, in Bruce's handwriting, a single line in English: they will never touch my children. I will end this myself. No repayment records were ever found. The stuntman who owed the money, found floating in Victoria Harbor 2 weeks after Bruce's funeral. Throat cut, tongue removed. The family has refused to hand these letters to Hong Kong police. They say it would open wounds that never healed. But off record, one archivist whispered, those letters smell like motive. Official story. July 20th. Bruce has dinner with Raymond Chow and George Lazenby. Headache. Goes to Betty Ting Pei's apartment. Takes Equinol, collapses, dies. That's the Disney version. Here's what this state's private investigator timeline, found on microfilm in crate 52, says actually happened in the missing 48 hours nobody talks about. July 19th, 11:47 p.m. Bruce receives a phone call at Crane's Nest. Linda is in Seattle with the kids. Only Bruce and the maid are home. The maid later told investigators Bruce screamed in Cantonese so loud the windows shook, then smashed the phone against the wall. July 20th, 2:14 a.m. Security camera at Golden Harvest Studios catches Bruce arriving alone, carrying a small black doctor's bag. He stays until 5:30 a.m. No one knows what he was doing. July 20th, 10 a.m. He visits a private clinic in Kowloon. Not his normal doctor. Pays in cash. Leaves a new prescription vial labeled only with a red dragon stamp. July 20th, 3:20 p.m. Lunch with Raymond Chow. Chow later admitted under oath that Bruce looked like a ghost and kept saying, if anything happens to me, get my children out of Hong Kong tonight. July 20th, 7:45 p.m. Betty Ting Pei's apartment. What everyone knows starts here. Except one neighbor swears he saw two men in dark sunglasses leave the building exactly 8 minutes before the ambulance arrived. One of them was carrying the same black doctor's bag Bruce arrived with at Golden Harvest 36 hours earlier. That bag has never been found. 1973. One public autopsy. Cause of death, cerebral edema, possible allergic reaction. 1998. Linda quietly authorizes a second examination of preserved tissue samples in the U.S. Results were never released until a lab tech leaked a 47-page report to a journalist in 2024. Key findings. Mercury levels for 100% above lethal dose for chronic exposure lead isotopes that match industrial sources used in 1970s film processing chemicals, the same chemicals that contaminated the game of death real. Microscopic needle marks on the back of the neck consistent with repeated injections, over 6 to 9 months traces of scopolamine, a drug that causes amnesia and compliance, nicknamed Devil's Breath by Colombian cartels, and apparently by certain Hong Kong triad chemists. The coroner's private conclusion, written in red pen on page 46. This was not suicide. This was not accident. This was homicide disguised as medical misadventure. Linda has never confirmed or denied the report, but the original copy was found in the welded steel box, right next to the triad letters. Since 1973, every single person who knew too much has met a bad end. The stuntman who owed the triad money, throat cut, floating in harbor the mysterious L.A. doctor vanished, presumed dead the Golden Harvest security guard who saw Bruce at 2 a.m. killed in a random hit-and-run. 1976, a lab tech who leaked the second autopsy, found hanged in 2024, ruled suicide, but the rope marks didn't match. Even Yu Pang Lin, the Love Hotel owner who promised to save Crane's Nest, died of sudden heart attack at 61. Shannon Lee now keeps a bulletproof vest in her car. She doesn't wear it for fun. When asked about the curse in a 2025 interview, she said only, "My father used to say, the dragon sleeps, but never dies. Some people should have let him keep sleeping." Black screen, one heartbeat, ton visage, OU just ta Voigt's grave. That's it. The crates are closed. The truth is out. Some of it beautiful. Most of it ugly. All of it real. If this video made you question everything you thought you knew, good. That's exactly why this channel exists. Like if the truth hit harder than a 1-inch punch. Subscribe if you're ready for the next legend that was never supposed to be told. And comment the name of the next icon you want me to open the vault on. Until the next secret, stay dangerous, stay curious, and never trust the official story. See you in the dark.